now here's Pedro with the headlines.
Thank you, Giannis. Protesters blocked 3 buses of undocumented immigrants going from Texas to San Diego, heading to a border patrol station. Almost 80,000 undocumented children without parents have crossed the border this year in what the White House is calling an immediate humanitarian crisis. The issue is so severe that all facilities in Texas are too crowded, and immigrants are now being sent to other states. Now, President Obama dared Republicans to follow through on their threats to bring a lawsuit against his administration over his use of executive action. The president said that as long as the GOP is doing nothing, he's not going to apologize for trying to do something. This comes as a response against John Boehner's plan to propose legislation that could bring a lawsuit against the president. And during a press conference today, Toronto Mayor Rob Ford said he has already used every drug we can possibly think of and blamed substance abuse for the racist and homophobic language he's used. Ford returned to work this week after a 2-month stay in a rehab facility for drugs and alcohol and said he will run for office again in October. A new study published in Nature magazine shows scientists were able to teach a computer to predict which teenagers would become binge drinkers in the future with 70% accuracy. The test used brain function, personality, life history, and genetics data from hundreds of 14-year-olds. The study authors said for now, it may be impossible to predict alcoholism with 100% accuracy, but this is indeed a promising start.
And now to the story that we picked for you today. As you know, Pedro Andrade is back from his home country of Brazil, where he was covering the World Cup, and he has brought us yet another story. This is amazing.
Yes, I did. Just 8 teams left on the World Cup, and my team, Brazil, of course, is still the favorite to win, according to odds makers. Brazilians play a style of futebol that mirrors the culture, stylistic, carefree, and aesthetically pleasing. Now, look closer, and you'll find these same characteristics in Brazil's art. Check out Vik Muniz, for example. The guy makes art out of pretty much anything, and it turns up in places like the Metropolitan Museum and the Smithsonian. His latest documentary focuses on the most Brazilian of passions, the soccer ball. I was lucky enough to sit down with him at his studio in Rio to talk about his inspirations, his goals, and what art really should be about.
The world is a picture. It's a changing picture. We have to update it. We have to work on it every day to have a clear idea of where we live in and what we should be doing here.
Brazilian artist Vik Muniz has always seen the world through a different lens, relying on the most unusual tools. From peanut butter and jelly, and yes, even pasta. All to create something from what appears to be nothing. His photographs have been celebrated in art galleries across the world, and in the process, he's put Brazilian art on the map. We were invited inside Vik's studio in Rio's Gávea neighborhood to talk about his work and his latest muse, futebol.
Looking back as a child, do you remember drawing and playing? Do you see the seeds of what you've become?
Oh, not consciously. I mean, everybody draws. Something particular that probably has something to do with the fact that I started drawing more than the other children around me is the fact that I had a learning disability. I am a self-taught dyslexic person.
You don't come from a family that was involved with art.
I did not even have an example of an artist to serve as a role model. It only occurred to me that I could become an artist when I was already living in New York. I started seeing the possibility of an activity that I had not envisioned before, which was to live exclusively from my own ideas.
Now, your work is so iconic in so many ways at this point, but you do have an artistic legacy of repurposing materials that are unusual to most people's eyes.
Most of my work turns out to be icons, archetypes, things that you're utterly familiar with. The sublime in art is the moment of transformation when something turns into something else and makes you see something that was not there.
This idea inspired what many call his most iconic work, as seen in the Oscar-nominated documentary Wasteland. The film follows Vik's journey outside of Rio into what was once one of the world's largest landfills, using the very materials the workers inside picked to create elaborate photographs of them.
Caraca, maluco! It was fascinating because it changed deeply the way people see themselves, allow them to actually find value and find worth in themselves.
And with the eyes of the world on his home country during the World Cup, His latest subject is just as small but powerful.
We try to simulate the effect of a drawing made with soccer balls.
Showing how by mixing both art and soccer, this is not a ball.
What could I do with a ball? And all of a sudden, it looked like I could do anything with it, you know?
10,000 of them meticulously put together to create this installation inside Mexico's Estadio Azteca.
Both in art and in any sport, playing is the most important thing in both cases, you know? I'm very fortunate because my life, it's about playing. You don't need to change the lives of people forever. All you need to do it for one bit is just to take them away from where they are so they can look at it from a different perspective. And all of a sudden, their lives becomes a picture.
One of my all-time favorite artists, if you guys haven't seen This Is Not a Ball in Wasteland, his documentary, go ahead and watch it. The films are amazing. And you're going to be helping all of the people that he's helping because part of the profit goes to them.
You know what was interesting to me? Is like I've seen a lot of artists who use like garbage and non-traditional, you know, apparatus to make their art. His stuff is technically beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not abstract. It's like, wow, how did you make that so technically precise with chocolate syrup, you told me?
Yeah, well, what I think is incredible is as he mentioned, he is dyslexic. And so he had a really hard time learning how to read. His grandmother, who was a very influential person in his life, taught him how to read by looking at words as blocks, as images, not the regular way that students, you know, learn. He said that was made it tougher for him to socialize and find friends. However, it gave him a different perspective. He looks at everything in a different angle, through a different. So he looks at chocolate syrup, he looks at a cloud, he looks at this mug, and everything is art.
And so would you say he's comparable to like our Andy Warhol here? I see it takes a lot of people to work with him.
That's actually a really great comparison because Andy Warhol loved iconic figures like, you know, Mona Lisa and Liz Taylor and Marilyn Monroe, and that's what he does. He says that he brings the attention. He always portrays something that the world already knows, but through a specific, you know, like through a specific material or something. Another great story, he comes from a lower middle class family. His father was a waiter. He didn't have any money. He always wanted to do something with art. He was separating a fight in Rio and he got shot. So the guy that shot him is like, I need to give you money for something. I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't meant to hit him. Exactly. He paid him money and that's how he came to New York, got a scholarship in art school, and nowadays he's one of the top artists in the world.
Wow. And so how much do his pieces go for?
Oh, believe me, a lot. I mean, in the millions, you know. He's definitely right up there. But he's worth it. He deserves it.
Brazil.
All right, next on Fusion Live, we'll check out a few ways to pay down those student loans.
And later, what it's like to be called Mr. Mariah Carey. Our co-host, Mariana, sits down with Nick Cannon for a one-on-one interview.
If you're watching Fusion Live, our Twitter handle is Fusion Live TV.
Mr. Mariah Carey.